State House studio in Montgomery. I'm Todd Stacy. Welcome to Capitol Journal. Today was the 8th legislative day of the 2025 regular session as both the House and Senate convened this morning to conduct business. We'll start our coverage in the Senate, where lawmakers took up a bill seeking to change the composition and appointment process for the board that governs the Alabama Department of Archives and History. Senate Bill 5, sponsored by State Senator Chris Elliott, proposes modifying the size of the board and shifting the authority responsible for appointing its membership. Elliott introduced similar legislation last year after controversy arose over a lunch program hosted at the department by the Invisible Histories Project, which focused on LBGT history in the state. During today's Senate session, Democratic Senator Roger Smitherman threatened to filibuster the bill, arguing that more time was needed to review its potential implications. In response, Elliott agreed to temporarily set the bill aside, carrying it over for consideration at a later date.
But the committee substitute is something that has been discussed with the Archives and History Board. This has been negotiated back and forth, and I will say that I think while it is not necessarily what I wanted or what they wanted, I think we're both comfortably neutral on the bill at this point. And so I think it brings it more into consistency with other boards and commissions in the state, including some we voted on here just recently. And that there is even an added layer of protection and separation from those that we just voted on here recently.
Over the years I've been here, it's very difficult unless you sit down and analyze each aspect of it to do it on the fly. Because it's being a lawyer, I can just tell you that we can have a 50-page bill and all that's got to be changed in it is one word from may to shall. Just one word in a 50-page bill, and it changes the whole bill.
There are multiple bills dealing with gun storage this session, but they are taking different paths. One bill would require parents and legal guardians to securely store their firearms, and it would establish criminal penalties for parents whose children gain access to their firearms and bring them to school. That bill was before the House Committee on Public Safety Wednesday, but it failed to advance. House Bill 103 from State Representative Barbara Drummond would require parents to make their firearms reasonably secure, which the bill defines as utilizing a trigger lock, a gun safe, or other security mechanism. The bill would also make it a Class A misdemeanor, punishable with up to 1 year in jail, were their child to gain access to the firearm and bring it to public school property. Members of the committee praised Drummond for her intent behind the bill, but it ultimately failed to pass. But another gun storage bill is moving. The Senate today passed Senate Bill 40, known as the Houston Hunter Act. It would allow citizens to turn over their firearms to a registered gun dealer or local law enforcement agency for a set amount of time without fear of repercussions, such as losing their ability to possess a firearm or being involuntarily committed. The bill is named for military veterans Houston Tumlin and Hunter Whitley, both of whom died by suicide. Their mothers have advocated this bill, saying had it been law previously, it may have saved their sons. That bill now goes to the House. The House had a relatively light day, passing legislation updating the Board of Pharmacy and expanded benefits for volunteer firefighters. House Speaker Nathaniel Ledbetter said it had been a productive week, specifically mentioning the package of crime bills moving and the passage of the Veterans Resource Center bill.
I think we had a very productive week this week. If you look at what we were able to accomplish with crime bills and getting those out, those were pretty strong. And then certainly the veterans bill that we got out to help veterans with mental health and transition, I think that's important. So we talked about that before we got started, but that was becoming a public-private partnership where the state's partnering with Alabama Power on the crisis centers for veterans. And went to a reception last night where they raised some $500,000 for that program. So it was very good. I think it's something, Alabama's one of the top veteran states in the country as far as what we do for veterans. We have over 400,000 veterans in our state, and I think it's important that we help them in transition from military life to civilian life. Sometimes that's not easy. And so I think the Resource Center, Veterans Resource Center, is going to do that, and I'm excited about what's going on with that.
Today was Higher Ed Day at the State House. Students and administrators from Alabama's 14 public universities gathered here in the capital city to rally in support of higher education and tell lawmakers about the positive impact it has on the state. The day included a parade, a rally on the State House steps, and a barbecue lunch for lawmakers and staff on the Capitol lawn.
We couldn't be any more pleased to have the opportunity to share the story of our public universities with these elected officials who every day are making very difficult decisions. And we just want to help them understand why we believe that universities are so critical. Every one of these 1,000 students here came because they have a dream. They have an interest in pursuing that dream, and they've chosen Alabama's universities as their place to invest their time, their energy, their resources. And we want to make sure that our elected officials understand the passion that our folks have for this dream and for this opportunity, and the role our universities play in making those dreams turn into a reality.
And today we are here advocating for not only graduate student retention in Alabama, but also funding from the government for our universities. As we know, college is kind of one of the main bases of the state of Alabama, but there is not much retention when it comes to students who graduate from colleges in Alabama. So our big goal this year is to try to encourage college graduates to build their businesses in Alabama, try to stay in Alabama and follow their career paths, and maximize with everything that the state has to offer.
We'll be right back with tonight's guests.
You can watch past episodes of Capital Journal online at video.aptv.org. Capital Journal episodes are also available on APTV's free mobile app. You can also connect with Capital Journal and link to past episodes on Capital Journal's Facebook page. And you can listen to past episodes of Capital Journal when you're driving or on the go with Capital Journal podcasts. Keep up with what's happening with Capital Journal.
APT is Alabama's storyteller. Stories of Alabama history. The arts. Alabama music. Learn more online at aptv.org.
Singer Wilson Pickett was renowned as an energetic and intense performer. The Prattville native gained international fame with such hits as Land of a Thousand Dances and In the Midnight Hour, and became one of the biggest music stars of the 1960s and 70s. He remains one of the most unique and significant artists of the soul music era. Atlantic Records producer Jerry Wexler encouraged Pickett to record at Stax Records in Memphis, merging the gospel roots of Pickett's vocals with the strutting, layered rhythms of the Stax musicians. Pickett soon was topping the R&B charts and crossing over to the pop charts. In early 1966, Wexler took Pickett to famed studios in Muscle Shoals, which had built a reputation as a versatile source of hit records. He and the Muscle Shoals Swampers recorded celebratory hard-driving hits such as Land of a Thousand Dances and Mustang Sally. Wilson Pickett was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1991.
Welcome back to Capital Journal. Joining me next is State Representative Jennifer Fidler from Fairhope and Representative Ben Robbins from Sylacauga. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you, Tom.
Thanks for having us.
Well, we're talking about the issue of immigration. It's a big topic this session. You both have immigration bills that are moving in the process. I want to start from the beginning. Where did this really get started? I understand there was a study group that got formed, and y'all have been talking about this, I guess, leading up to session.
I'd kind of like to pull in. I started watching and seeing some of the issues that North Alabama was having, and some of the influx of immigrants that folks in Abertville were having, and Representative Robbins in Sylacauga. So, and then this story hit that we were going to have this influx of immigrants hit Baldwin County. So I started doing a lot of research and found out that the Cuban, Haitian, Nicaraguan, Venezuelan program, there wasn't really a good connection between those people that were in that program and the sponsor, the people who were actually given money to sponsor, to be involved, to help sponsor that person, that immigrant. And it was kind of a disservice to the immigrant and the community where all these immigrants were coming. And I was watching the things that were happening over there. And Representative Robbins, kind of tell us where you guys were.
Really, we had a conversation on, kind of what the Republican caucus would be. And in our platform committee meeting, some of us discussed immigration issues, and just kind of offline, we just started talking, and we kept the speaker informed, and Jennifer got kind of rolled in when she reached out about her interest in it. And so yes, the CHNV program and some of the issues that occurred over the last summer, the summer of '24, is really what spurred a lot of the discussion of immigration, because it was, all these questions in every community that had any people that were part of the CHNV program. There were all these questions of how did they get here, what are they doing, where are they working, and that's why basically the name of my bill is the Workforce Transparency Act, because there was such a lack of transparency on the federal government side that these local communities were really struggling to get answers.
Yeah, and I do want to get to the specifics of your bills, but when you say influx, what does that mean? What actually happened on the ground? Because I know that there was a lot of misunderstanding about what was actually happening. But if like Sylacauga,
well, I'd say the word influx is a very broad term. The definition means more than one. So really anything, so influx is a very broad term, and each community had immigrants, or not each, but every community that we've discussed had immigrants. And so if you're a town of 5,000 and you have 50 or 100, that's a big strain. Or if you're a bigger community, so the numbers vary according to each community.
It's proportional.
It's proportional. But what we did see was what you just discussed. There was a lot of misinformation, and some of that was because of the lack of transparency. So rumors became facts. Facts, people didn't know, there were no absolute facts, and so that's what we're trying to kind of figure out and piece back together some of the things from the summer, and moving forward, we have a little more transparency on who's in our state and who's paying taxes and what benefits they're receiving.
Okay. Well, let's start with your bill. It has to do with wire transfers. I'm just seeing like a Western Union office, right, where folks are going to send money back to their home countries. This is pretty typical. And your bill would put a fee on that?
It's a 4% fee. It's similar to Senator Weaver's bill wire transfer fee bill that she had filed, in that 1.5% goes to the sheriff's detainer fund to help with the deportation issues that the sheriff's departments are encountering. And 2.5% goes back to the community or the county where the wire transfer originated. The thought, and we were I think the loosely formed immigration study group was very firm in that this is where the burdens are occurring in the community. So if this wire transfer occurred in Abertville, because we've got an influx of immigrants there, then maybe put that money back to that county and let the county decide where English language learners were by the ESL definition that we have, and put that 2% back to the education of English language learners. There's some parameters around that to give the county commissioners some direction about how much and how they distribute that. And then another 0.5%, the other 0.5%, would go to hospitals. So the hospitals that distributed among the hospitals in that county. If there's not a hospital in the county, it's distributed along in the hospitals that were within a 50-mile radius. And if there's no hospitals within the county or 50-mile radius, it goes back to the county health department.
Okay.
And there are parameters around that. There is a sunset on this bill. And the reason being is because we don't want to have a fee on anything that, and we want to make sure we know the money is spent for this immigration assimilation programs, and that's the name of that fund. So the fee would come through the Securities Commission, who regulates. They would kind of watch that, make sure it goes to the Treasury Department with these two funds set up, 1.5% with the Sheriff's Fund, and then the 2.5% called the Community Immigration Assimilation Resource Program Fund. And that's how it would trickle down with that study group that continues to watch that and assure that the communities are receiving the money and it's relieving the burden on those communities in those areas.
Is part of the point, though, to deter that kind of transaction? Is that anywhere in the intent of the law?
No, it really isn't. It's really just to help these communities absorb some of these costs that are occurring. For example, I went to all my schools in the district, and we had some of our schools in Baldwin County at 30% non-English speaking. And that puts a burden on when you only have one teacher that's teaching English to per 100 students that are trying to learn English. It's just a burden on that school. So it really is just to help the resources for that local community.
Let's move to your legislation. It has to do with E-Verify. We've heard the term E-Verify a lot. What does your bill actually do, and how does it change the law? Because I know we already have some things on the books as it.
Right, we already have things on the books about E-Verify. What my bill will do is it's kind of a comprehensive look at some of the issues we had in the summer, and it's closing loopholes that we found in our system in Alabama. One is we're going to start regulating what we call labor brokers, these individuals that bring people into the state. So if you recruit and bring individuals into the state, you're going to now be considered a labor broker. You're going to have to register with the state. So we know who these, as I call them, shadowy figures are that are quote unquote dumping people off. Who are you, where are you from, and how are you obtaining this labor? And we are going to, with those labor brokers, we're going to cut off any kind of kickback that a company or staffing agency could pay to a labor broker to go find them cheap labor. But what we're also going to do is that labor broker will have to E-Verify. They'll have to E-Verify that if I'm bringing individuals from, whether it be the border or wherever it might be, that they're actually legal immigrants with a right to work in the state.
It almost sounds like you're talking about coyotes or smugglers or something.
That's exactly what we're talking about.
But when I saw
here.
the term labor broker, I thought, was that a term of art or something? But you're basically creating that term.
Correct.
Okay.
We're creating that term off of what, a coyote or what those, the terms might be out there. So we're creating a legal term for it as the labor broker, and they're going to have to E-Verify. And then what we're also going to do is start having every government agency use the SAVES program. The SAVES program is similar to E-Verify, but what it does is you have to enter an immigrant's information into a public means tested benefit program and see if that immigrant is entitled to receive said benefit. Because we're not currently using that system, and we're going to require every agency to use that system. And on top of that, what we will do is we will start having sponsors register. So they'll have to register with the Department of Workforce. Because what we saw is that we'll use the CHNV program, for example. A sponsor has to sign an affidavit of financial support. So with that includes everything from education to healthcare, and if you're not doing those things, what we're going to say is, all right, you've got to register so we know who you are. And then when an immigrant applies for a public means tested benefit, that immigrant will have to list their sponsor's name. And so now we will allow the Attorney General to take that information and then collect against that sponsor for any expenses paid by the state on behalf of that immigrant when the sponsor agreed to provide that. the federal, this is already federal code, but there's never been a mechanism to try to capture these costs. So we're saying if it can be done federally, it can be done on the state level, and we can recoup state money that was paid out. So it's about transparency, because we need to know who's in our state, and it's about being good stewards of our tax dollars, because there was no way to recoup monies that never should have been paid, and there was no verification of if you had a right to that entitlement.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk about kind of trying to complement what the federal government is now doing under the Trump administration with state law enforcement, all that. I am reminded, though, that we've been here before in many ways. Back in 2011, HB 56, broad-reaching, strictest immigration law in the country. So much of it was clawed back by the courts. Some of it was clawed back by the legislature. I'm curious, in your meetings, in your study and discussions, how much that has played into lessons learned, what we can do legally and not have to go through that situation.
Yeah, well, I can tell you that we have a very different approach. I know what you said, that broad reaching. I'd say we're nothing like that bill, the bill you were discussing earlier. Ours are cutting edge approaches on what states can do, and we are not hitting everyone with a broad hammer and trying to just make headlines. We've worked really hard on what can the state do, and that's why we're talking about protecting our state dollars. And we also are talking about how do we assimilate legal immigrants into the state. We are not, this is not an anti-immigrant proposal. It's not, we still are a very welcoming state. We're just saying, how do we know that we are collecting all the taxes that we should? For instance, we're updating portions of the tax code to make sure that, because some immigrants don't get Social Security numbers, but they have a USCIS number, we're now going to require every employer to notify Department of Workforce of a USCIS number so we can properly tax that immigrant. And then on the flip side, we make sure that immigrants aren't receiving benefits they shouldn't be receiving, just like we do with every Alabamian. So all we're doing is trying to make this system more transparent, and we're trying to recoup with Jennifer's bill, monies that is lost out of our community. And the other bills that we're talking about are across the board. We're not singling out any class of person. We're treating all people the same. And so we believe that we are not overstepping state authority. We're well within our grounds to protect our tax dollars and regulate industry within our state. But we are so narrowly focused. We have worked diligently with all the business groups, all the farm communities, on making sure that labor is available, but it is legal labor. And we do not think that we will have an impact on the labor market in this state.
Okay. Well, we will be following your bills closely. I hope you'll keep us updated as to their progress. Looks like this is going to be one of the key issues of the legislative session. Really appreciate y'all's time, and be safe driving home.
Thank you so much.
Tom.
We'll be right back.
You can watch past episodes of Capitol Journal online anytime at Alabama Public Television's website, aptv.org. Click on the Online Video tab on the main page. You can also connect with Capitol Journal and link to past episodes on Capitol Journal's Facebook page.
Alabama Public Television is your place for quality educational services. Free professional development for educators and child care providers. Access to free curriculum-aligned videos, lesson plans, and instructional resources with PBS Learning Media. And all the PBS Kids programs parents know and trust. Learn something new every day with Alabama Public Television. Visit us at aptv.org/education to learn more.
Birmingham native Virginia Foster Durr was a constant presence in progressive Alabama politics and the movement for civil rights in the second half of the 20th century. In the early 1950s, Virginia Durr and her husband, attorney Clifford Durr, were living in Montgomery and became involved in the Montgomery bus boycott. For most of the 1960s, the Durr household was a hub of civil rights activity, as the couple opened their home to journalists, activists, and attorneys during the Freedom Rides and the Selma to Montgomery March. Throughout the 1970s and 1980s, Virginia Durr continued to write and speak on behalf of progressive political causes. In 1985, she published her autobiography, Outside the Magic Circle, which was widely praised. She remained active in state and local politics well into her early 90s, often protesting nuclear weapons and working to achieve economic equality.
You're watching Alabama Public Television.
That's our show for tonight. Thanks for watching. Don't miss Capital Journal's Week in Review tomorrow night at 7:30 here on Alabama Public Television. For our Capital Journal team, I'm Todd Stacy. We'll see you next time.